record on the desktop. All good?
Okay. Hey, bro, what's up? I'm Vin.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Don.
And welcome to our podcast. So this week is right after the marriage part 2 with Jeff and Cass. So we're going to do another father and son-in-law special since I did it with my quote-unquote father-in-law. And then this time we'll have it with Jeff's father-in-law. We're also going to talk about the importance of family for men in their lifetime, how important family is. And so returning guest here is Don, and so Jeff and Don, if you want to take over.
All right. So if we want to do a little reintroduction of yourself, Don.
Yeah, I'm Don. This is the son-in-law over here who you've gotten to know throughout the other podcasts.
Throughout the weeks.
There's Jeff.
Yeah, y'all know me by now. So we're going to start with our quote of the week, if you'd like to read that for us, Don.
Alright, where do we go? Quote of the week. The bond that links your true family is not one of blood, but of respect and joy in each other's lives. And that is by Richard Bach.
So how do you translate that? Like, what does that quote mean to you?
That old adage, or that old saying of blood is thicker than water, is misquoted.
It is grossly misquoted.
I truly believe that this is more accurate. There's so many things that happen within a family, within blood families, where you can be so much closer to somebody who has no DNA contact or blood with you at all.
Well, with that quote, do you know the full saying? Not the quote of the week you just read, the one you brought up.
Blood is thicker than water, and
do you know the full saying? That's why it's so misquoted, is most people don't know the full saying. The full saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, which has the opposite meaning of the shortened version that most people say.
See, and I was going into the different songs that use the version of it, so I was playing those things in my head.
And so to you, why is family important? I know it's a very broad question that has a lot that can go under it.
Well, and being a return guest, I'll say that both my wife and I were police officers for a number of years. So, and Jeff being former military, family can be defined in many different ways, because like the Band of Brothers, I don't know if you watched that whole
I'm familiar
whole
with
thing several times. It's the same thing with the Thin Blue Line. A lot of those people, one would lay down their life for you, or you would lay down your life for them. And I know that there's certain blood relatives that I have that wouldn't cross the street to. We'll just leave it there. So a lot of times, again, we're going back to that, it doesn't have to be a blood bond, like my best friend for 30, 40 years now is, another former cop.
Is that Gil?
That's Gil. And, we would do anything for each other. And, I could pick up the phone now and call him, and he'd be on a flight to come down here if I needed him, He's still back in Chicago, and one of these days he'll get wise and move. But
I still have yet to meet Gil.
yeah, well, you will
eventually. Now, I definitely agree. Like, you know my family dynamic. I have a lot of friends and brothers that I would consider my family long before I would consider half of my actual family my family. So to me, like, I very much believe you pick your family. Blood doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Like, yes, there are some members of my family that I would do anything for. But there are many of them that would not do the same for me. Whereas, like, you have Gil, for me, it's Strive. I could call Strive right now and he'd be like, I'm on my way. Don't know what we're doing, don't know what you need, but I'm on my way. And the only family members I have that would do that would be my sister Stephanie. Like, if I truly needed her, she'd drop everything and she'd be here in a heartbeat, and my dad. But I have built a family around me that is willing to do anything and everything that I need, to include you and Stacy, Strive, Cass.
I mean, Strive or Caleb. I don't know who knows him by what name.
On his episode, he preferred Strive.
Okay, all right. I mean, a good example of what he did was he picked up and moved away from his family. And it wasn't because he didn't get along with his father or whatever, but the relationship that you guys had was much stronger than, like, his blood family. So he picked up and moved, completely. I mean,
across the country.
He knew nothing about this area other than what we had told him. And, I think he's happy. I mean, we've been around, enough, and so I think he made the right move, and maybe one of these days, once his dad helped him drive down here, but
I think his dad is planning on visiting again soon.
Yeah, and a couple of times with his dad visiting, he may want to move down here too. So
when do y'all consider a friend a brother or a family member? What is that criteria? What is the condition for y'all to be like, no, he is my brother, no, he is my son, or family member?
I would say once somebody proves themselves to you that they have your back in any given situation, that they'll be there to give you an honest answer to a question, and you're not going to get mad at them if you don't want to hear the answer to what they're telling you.
So someone that's willing to be brutally honest with you.
Yeah, and that's the test of a true character in somebody, that they're looking out for your best interest, so they're going to be brutally honest with you. And you after a few times of that they've got your back no matter what.
I can agree with that, but I also don't think I would give any true criteria to it. To me, it's just one of those, like, yes, what you said goes into it, but you just kind of, like, get that feeling and like, which I guess could be related to, like, prove themselves and they're going to be brutally honest with you, but it also depends on context. So if we're talking, like, people in your everyday life that you choose to surround yourself with, that's one thing, but like, for me, in my time in the military, there were some of those guys and girls that I didn't even get along with, but I was still willing to put my life on the line for them. So, like, not that I really considered them family, but they were my family while we were over there. Because we all looked out for each other, even if we didn't get along. If that sums it up for you. What's this about the New York Post? New York Times? Is that a quote you found?
Yeah. So, I guess it's going back to like how important is family in a man's life, um, and some would say it provides a lot of fulfillment, right? Like, I just it's kind of the same with just friendships and your social group and your support group. To if just imagine the life without people you love and people that love and support you. Um, so this is a study that said that concerning a men's sense of fulfillment.
So imagine that you weren't surrounded with the people that you considered family.
Yeah, it would pretty much be saying like you would lose a sense of like community or lose a sense of self really.
I could agree with that. I think I'd be pretty lost if like all the people that were close to me just up and disappeared.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd do. Can you imagine if all of us just disappeared and you were just by yourself in that house?
No. I mean, we've all watched episodes of The Walking Dead where they had a hard time dealing with, and that was, fiction. I couldn't imagine something like that in real life.
That'd be devastating. I'd be truly lost. Like, I don't know if I'd be able to get out of bed, let alone take care of myself.
Yeah, and I think that goes into I guess that's why we kind of get married, right? It's like creating more family, it provides us a sense of purpose, So for a lot of people, having kids as well provides a sense of purpose and fulfillment. So, I think that study makes sense.
I would agree, and that goes along with what I was saying earlier, how, like, I'm a firm believer in you choose your family. Like, you don't necessarily have to be with the family you're born into. You can build your own and choose your own and surround yourself with the people that you want to surround yourself with.
Right.
Like, if I didn't get along with you, you think I would have married your daughter?
Yeah. So I had watched a video about like just homelessness and stuff, and it just makes few of them interviewed. They're just like, I have no one, I have no family members I can go to, nothing like that, and they're homeless. So it's like, I was imagining if they had a loving and supportive family, they probably wouldn't be homeless.
Yeah,
Well,
if they had that support system to pick them up when they were in their downtime.
Right.
Yeah, some of them. And then on the other side, there is a community in the
homeless community.
In the homeless community.
True. Okay.
We used to see it, a lot of times, and they would know if somebody was missing. They would know if, we'll just use, Susie for some reason, she hasn't been to her cardboard box or her her spot. They do have a tendency to look out for each other, and there is that respect of property, and it's until you get to know those people in that community, you don't know how loyal they are. But these are all people from so many different walks of life. But it's just, for one reason or another, they choose to live that way. Some of them do, some of them don't. But the ones that do, they do treat it like a community. And they respect, not just each other, but each other's property, and they look out for each other. So, that's kind of interesting.
So in a way, they've built their own family on the streets.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the differences, like we've kind of touched on a little bit, between blood family and the family you build. Which one would you say kind of weighs heavier for you?
The family you build. And it's so difficult. And maybe I'll put it this way. My aunt, who was my mom's blood sister, when she got married to my uncle, who had no blood relation to me, was the closest person in my life outside of my own father. So my father, obviously, we had a great relationship, great bond, and all that kind of stuff. But my uncle, who wasn't related by blood, but he was related, I guess, through family. So I don't know if that is kind of what you're looking for or not. But he was a profound influence on my life.
So your two biggest influences were your uncle and your father?
Yeah. And then, my friend Gil, who's, what is Gil? 20 some years older than me? 20, let's see. Yeah, 25 years older. And when I first started off in the police department, he took me under his wing, and we had a immediate connection, and he helped me learn who to trust, how to read signs, how to do a lot of stuff that they don't necessarily teach you in the police academy. So yeah, he was, and always, will be, a profound influence on my life.
Who was the biggest influence on your life? That's a tough one.
That's a tough one. I mean, my father. My father was a huge, and then my grandmother on my mom's side. They both taught me a lot of different things. But if we're looking at males, I don't know if we're just...
You can bring females in. Because they have different things to teach you.
Yeah, they do. And... I guess one of the biggest things I learned from my grandmother was giving up something that you love in order to trade that in for having a family. And that's a hard decision. Make it simple. Before I became a police officer, I worked for my uncle, who I talked about earlier. And I had to make a decision when he was moving his company. Do I follow him to Florida, or do I pursue my dream and become a police officer? So that was another very hard decision to make, and he helped walk me through it, just like my own father did. I took advice from my elders. But I'm glad that I had them there for me.
Yeah, for me it was a little weird because I'm a child of divorce, so I only got to see my dad 6 days a month. But he always did try to teach me as much as he could, but I would say I got most of my influence from my friends' dads. Because I got to see them very frequently because I was never home. I would always go over to my buddy's house, and I was just kind of brought into multiple families. And that's kind of where I had most of my influences and upbringings when I was a kid. Now, granted, my dad still has taught me a lot, and I still continue to learn from him, even though, with us living all the way out here, I don't get to see him very often, but he did his best to teach me what he could.
Hey, it's let's try to figure out a way to put this so that we don't point anybody out. Sometimes when you grow up in a family, it's very interesting how I grew up with 3 other siblings. So there was 4 of us, and all 4 of our personalities are vastly different. It's interesting how that happens, and I know that Jeff can attest to this too, because he's got multiple siblings, half siblings, step siblings. He's got the whole gamut, and how some of them, the personalities are vastly different.
Oh, we're all vastly different. Because I grew up with 4 of my sisters, so there were 5 of us in the house. And only 2 of us are similar, and that'd be me and Stephanie. But all the rest, completely different people. Different viewpoints, different ideologies. Like, if you saw us all in a room, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell we were related. I see here we got... So what are the different views, perspectives, and roles when it comes to being a man in the family? So, like, when you look at it from the breakdown, like, what's the differences in, like, your role as a grandfather, your role as a father, your role as a husband, your role as a brother?
Yeah, it's weird when you say grandfather, because I don't feel like it. I mean...
She's about to be 3 years old. You're a grandpa.
I know, it's about to be 3. But in my mind, it's a lot like having raised Cassidy. And I watch a lot of the same personality in the little one as I do with Cassidy. And so it's still a weird adjustment, because in my mind, I still, again, I when I hear grandfather, I think of my grandfather, and I'm like, I'm not there yet, even though I am there, and it each step of the way was very, very different, and I'm glad I had a great relationship with my grandfather, who taught me a lot. He grew up during very, very hard times, and he started working as a grave digger when he was 9 years old. I mean, and that's back when they had to do it by hand with a shovel.
Before child labor laws?
Yeah. Yeah. And... but back then you had to do what you had to do to feed your family.
Right.
And, he was a hard working man. Just...
Is that what he did his whole life? Like, he maintained being a gravedigger?
Once he retired from being a gravedigger, he was part of the... Believe it or not, there's a union for everything. So there was a gravediggers union, which he had belonged to or whatever. But once he had retired from that, he moved to Southern Illinois and bought bought a farm and raised cattle on one side of the farm and pigs on the other side. And, like I said, he was just a strong, hard-working man that wouldn't quit, And so I learned a lot, a lot from him by, you get out of life what you put into it. You get out of work what you put into it. You get out of, and he showed me how to be a hard worker, and my dad grew up very poor and grew up on a farm also. So watching my dad working with my grandfather, who obviously he was the son-in-law because it was my mom's father. But watching the joy of watching them work together, again, helped me in my life build that bond, and knowing how that works.
So what you're saying is we need to go into business together?
Yeah, we need to go. We got to find some business together,
So all the stuff you learned from your grandfather and your father, is that kind of what you translated into being a grandfather and a father? Like the difference in how you raised Cass and how you're helping to raise G?
Yes. I mean, I try to, just like with Cass when she was little, get down on her level, just like I do with Gianna, and just let her, feel that comfort level. And it was a great experience, doing that with both of my kids, and now being able to do it with the granddaughter is just, it's special,
Has all that helped shape how you are as a husband as well?
I think so. I mean,
Like, did you learn from watching your mom and dad and your grandma and grandpa? Or was it more so navigating on your own and figuring things out?
No, this is where we have to tap dance, because you never know who's watching. I learned how to be a husband from my father, being that, again, he was such a hard worker, and he knew that it didn't stop when he got home from work. Like, the four of us kids were still there, and the chores, whether it was mowing the lawn or taking care of the car, or he continued to do all of that stuff, which he helped me to love to cook. He helped me to he showed me so many different things. Not that I didn't learn things from my mother, but I think because of our family dynamic, and being so close with my father, that I think I was able to take more from him. So taking that and moving it into my current situation and my marriage, I try to always be the same way, and make sure that I do the majority of the cooking, as you, and Strive can attest to that too.
Hey, nothing against Stacy. You're
No.
just a better cook.
She can make a hell of a grilled cheese. but but I enjoy cleaning the house and doing the laundry, and my wife and I have our, I don't want to say set chores or set things, but she takes care of the bills and the financial needs and that kind of stuff, and I take care of the rest of the household.
Well, it's the norms you guys just kind of fell into.
It's just, and I enjoy cleaning, and it's just what, we both do the yard because we both enjoy doing that. So that's one of the tasks that we do as a family, like her and I together. Which before we moved down to Texas and we lived at the lake house with, all the property and all that stuff to take care of.
Constant chore.
It was a constant thing, but we had more fun, her and I, doing that on a hot summer's day. We enjoyed it. And so we know what our jobs are, but on the same side of that, because I've gone through many surgeries for many different things, just like she has gone through many different illnesses and injuries and surgeries, we know where to pick up the slack of what's missing that the other one isn't doing. We don't just, 6 weeks from now, when you're back on your feet, you can catch up. We pick up the slack for one another, and
because you guys are a team.
It's a marriage, it's a team, and it's a team effort, and I guess that's where that saying goes. It takes a village. So, that's kept us strong and grounded. Being able to share the different responsibilities really helps.
I've got one I'm a little curious on here.
Yeah.
Because, with today's state of the world, deciding to become a parent is a very difficult thing financially, all those different things that go into it.
Yes.
When did you decide you were ready to be a dad back then? What was that pivotal moment where you and Mom were like, you know what? I think we're ready to start raising another one. Minus Tony, because he was already there when y'all got married.
Right. But when I first got married to Stacy, I knew at that point in time that I wanted to have a child with her. I had relationships in the past where I never felt like that person was going to be the right
one to have kids with.
The right one. I mean, it was just a feeling, and I'm not going to say that person was bad by any means. It was just how I knew I wanted to raise a child. Whether you're talking, morally or, there's just, and maybe it's because Stacy and I have so much in common. Even our thoughts are
pretty similar.
Very, very similar. I mean, we'll be thinking the same thing, and we just don't say it. And at the time, we'll bring it up, and she'll be like, "You didn't just say that. I was literally just going to say the same thing." But after 30 plus years of marriage,
31.
See, I know that because
You got
of
married
your
the year I
age.
was born.
Yeah, so that's I knew when we got married that I wanted, besides, I mean, I adopted Tony when we got married, and I knew that we wanted to have another one. Unfortunately, the first time, we went through a bit of a struggle, and we, had a miscarriage, and you always wonder, why do things like that happen? And then 6 months later, once we were clear to try again, we were blessed with Cassidy. So sometimes you get the reason in the long run because, I couldn't have asked for a better daughter, a better friend in life. She's she's been my sidekick through many, 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 many things, many adventures we've had, which I'm glad you get to share in that experience, and now you get to pick up the torch and carry her the way that I've carried her throughout life.
That's a big
I
torch.
know it's been 4 years. You guys have been married for 4 years. But I'm not always going to be here.
Yeah, you will.
So she's going to need somebody to hang shelves for her and do those little manly chores.
I do my best.
I know. But she's, and it's not. I'm not trying to, discard Tony in any different way. It's just, right now he's overseas and he's not here, and
That's where we come
he-
in to help pick up the slack with
Right.
him being gone.
and that's what family does. Is we're trying our best, to take care of our daughter-in-law and the granddaughter, and
Takes a village.
take the vote. Yep, that's it.
So another curious question I've got for you, because I've seen a little bit of this, but how do you handle conflicts within the family? Are you one to hold a grudge? Are you
No.
one to seek resolution immediately, talk things out? Like,
Yeah, I do not ever want to hold a grudge. We used to make it a point, even if throughout our marriage, Stacy and I always had this where we never wanted to go to bed angry, whether it was a disagreement with one of our kids or a disagreement with each other, or something, and those were very, very, very few and far between, but we never wanted to go to bed that way because it's just not healthy. No matter what it is, things can always be worked out, talked out, and unfortunately I don't think enough people do that today. I think people get so angry and they walk away, and you're not going to solve anything by that.
what if someone just needs to walk away for a little bit, like to collect themselves?
If you let that person know that I just need a breather, I just need a timeout, I'm not dissing you by walking away, but I need I need a moment to collect my thoughts before we end up saying something that we're going to regret.
Right.
So cooler heads will always prevail.
I could agree with that.
So
It's
yeah,
definitely
it depends.
better to
It
take a
depends
few
on how
minutes.
you walk away from the situation. You know, because too many people, you know, get in a fight and they, you know,
Just turn tail and run.
right, and that's not healthy. But I've always agreed with, no matter what it is, we can work it out. You know, we can talk about it, and I mean, like I said, after 31 years of marriage, I mean, we know each other so well. There's not disagreements. You know, if we had a disagreement, it might be, you know,
What to have for dinner that night?
or what Disney park are we going to visit first? You know, are we going to go to Magic Kingdom, or which one are we going to go to? But yeah, we don't. We don't disagree about much anymore.
What are your thoughts on divorce?
Well,
Not saying you're considering a
no,
divorce. Just
no.
what are your
no.
thoughts on divorce as
No.
as a whole?
I believe it's very necessary for some people, and I'll clarify that. And I'll just use unknown name people for examples.
Jack and Jill.
Jack and Jill, you know, I've known people that have been married, and they didn't fight. They both had good jobs. They had a wonderful home, and that was their life. And a lot of people these people, for example, just lived, or they were
Coexisting.
yeah. There's a line in if we can say that, a Neil Diamond song, where he uses a phrase, and he says, "Getting by doesn't mean you're living." And sometimes people need to realize that when you're coming home and you're doing your separate things and you're going about life, and there's not that bond, that love, that, you know, where you're asking the other person, how was your day, or you're taking time to see what their needs are. What can I do to help you today? Because there's times, you know, where people get married when they're 19, 20 years old, and then they realize, boy, I truly did not even know this person. And it, not in a bad way, but this isn't how I want to spend the rest of my life.
Right.
Because it, you know, in these situations, sometimes it can be like living with a roommate. And so you realize, whoa, you know, time out, you know, before we get too far into this. And I think that's why some people, where they call that 7-year itch, where they decide to step out, which is so stupid. Do yourself a favor. Talk and, you know, come up with a decision and either work on your marriage or walk away. Don't step out. I mean, that's so...
It just hurts the other person.
And it's so stupid and ridiculous. It's of no benefit to anybody.
It's kind of funny you brought up the living together portion, and that's where they learn that they don't really mesh well. Because Cass brought up the same thing when she was on here talking about marriage. She was like, well, you have to live with someone first because you have to see how they are in their natural habitat Because that's where you'll really get like a more true feeling for that person. Like, can I see myself with that person,
Yeah.
or are they a slob?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, she was raised a certain way, so she knows, how she wants to live her life. And she's, you know, she's got her own little quirks, of what's her hierarchy of needs that she needs met, and a lot of that is my fault. She was my princess and I babied her.
Uh-huh. Thanks for that.
That's what I said. I've handed it off to you. Now here's the crown. You get to wear it.
So, but as a whole, you think that in some situations divorce is necessary?
Yeah, I honestly, as hard as it is, and you can say that the church is against it and that kind of thing or whatever, and I think that churches, or let's just say God, would look more favorably upon you if you decided to end the marriage and walk away rather than cheating
Or hurting each other.
or doing something. I mean, the bottom line is, I'm sure God would want people to be happy. So, you only get one shot at life.
Right.
If you realize after, whether it's 1 month or whether it's 7 years, once you realize, wait a minute, this isn't it, it's not doing it for me, time to move on.
Yeah, when we talked about it last week, Cass and I had pretty similar views on divorce. And there's really only like 2 major reasons we could see divorce being a viable option, but there is kind of a third one now that you bring it up. The big main one was cheating. Like, cheating, that's a done deal, you walk away. Second one is physical violence.
Oh, no, yeah, definitely.
But here in Utah, it kind of brings me to a third one, like, it's sad to say it, but like falling out of love with that person, like if the feelings just aren't there anymore, it's more respectful to walk away if you don't want to work on it. Like, I truly believe you can work on that. Like,
you definitely can. If some people will make a list of what you do, what you don't do, or whatever, and because there's some people that go through life and they're in a marriage and they're oblivious because they think everything is fine, and it's not. It's stagnant, and for this person it's not fine. This person, they don't see it. They think everything's fine.
There's no communication there,
and
letting the other one know that their needs aren't being met.
That's the key. And so sometimes this person is afraid to say something to this person. But if you want your marriage to work, communication has to be number one on all of that stuff. It's very it's very damaging to both parties if there is no communication.
Sound familiar, Vin?
Yep.
How many times have we said communication is key in these previous episodes?
Yep.
So, wrapping up the divorce topic, we had discussed on a previous episode where we have seen this happen in a lot of situations. I, myself, am against it, but what are your thoughts on people staying married solely for the kids?
Here we go, bringing up the cop stuff again. I've seen it firsthand, and as kids get older, they're not stupid. They can see it, and they can feel it, Um, and I think in a lot of ways it can be more harmful to the child or children um, to be in that situation where they know that there's no love. And what are you teaching your children? That it's okay to go through life like this and be miserable? And to me, boy, it's just I've seen more domestic disputes, where I get more information by talking to the kids if they're old enough.
Right.
But
obviously
there's
talking to like a 3-year-old, they're
no,
not going to know what's going on.
There's some teenage kids that they would actually come to the station and ask for you in person. Like, can I talk to you? This is what's really going on, and they would give you some information. So the next time you went there, well, now I had a little more information to go on. But yeah, the kids aren't stupid, and sometimes it can be more. You think you're doing the right thing for the kids, but and let me take it a step further. If you are going to get divorced, it's still very, very, very important to have a role in the kid's life so they don't feel abandoned, so they don't feel as if it was their fault for some reason, because so many kids they wear that and they'll carry that the rest of their life, or I'm not good enough. And we have enough mental crisis in this world today.
Don't need to add to it.
Don't definitely not. So I don't know if that answered that question or not.
Oh, it did. You pretty much aligned with me, and it's not worth it because A, the kids can pick up on that, and B, it just leads to more shit down the road.
It does, in my opinion. And I'm sure there's people that could have an argument to the other side, and I'd be willing to listen to what you have to say. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying, in my opinion, I think it can cause more harm or more damage in the long run.
I mean, I'm sure there's cases out there where it worked, but based on personal observations, I've seen it not work way more than I've seen it work.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on discipline when it comes to your kids?
I think it has to be consistent. I think it has to be structured. And it has to be agreeable to both parents. Because nothing can be more damaging than one person laying down the law and then the other person undoing, because then that child loses respect for the other parent. So as far as discipline goes, it's like anything in life. They'll always tell you that structure and discipline are necessary in most children's life. And people or kids that don't have structure and discipline, they end up
Hoodlums?
Going off the deep end or searching for something else out there, and would you say that one of the main reasons you joined the military when you did was searching for that structure and discipline?
I joined because I wanted to go to college, and I had a lot of siblings, and I knew my parents or myself could not afford to put me through college. and I didn't know what to do with my life. So I
Okay,
was
so
like,
you were looking for some sort of structure.
eh.
Okay. And you needed somebody to teach you some of the things that there I mean, I know your dad. I like your dad a lot, all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, when he's not able to be there full time for you, and it falls back on other people. And I'm not going to put anybody down for anything. You and I have talked, and we know each other's stories. So, but I would guess that. Yeah, you said you wanted to go to college and do all that kind of, but I think again, deep down, you were looking for some type of structure in life, some guidance, some where do I go from here or whatever, something you could look up to.
I actually miss how structured my life was back then. I didn't
Yeah.
have to think. It was, you need to be here at this time and this is what you're doing. I was
But-
like, you got it.
But now it can be the same thing in a marriage. Where Stacy and I are at, but we've always been at that point. We've always meshed, and we've always been that there for each other and pick up the slack from the other person, do what we have to do. And now you have this as your structure. And so, it's up to you to make the best of it, both of you.
Yeah.
Not just saying you. It's up to, and I don't want to give any indication that there's anything wrong or everything's perfect, but I'm just saying being in a marriage it's that end all beat all structure, that bonds.
And she disciplines me when needed. So, what did discipline look like for her growing up? How did you discipline?
One time.
One time, that was it. One time.
One time. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure she could recall it better than me or whatever. It was just, I don't know. It was one of those things where I got mad about something, and to me, I don't remember. I'm sure she would, and I raised my voice, and it was just like
Started the pouty lip.
But I, that was virtually non-existent. She was easy. She was easy.
Okay, so you had to discipline her. Are you on the card of groundings, taking things away, spanking, yelling?
Never yelling. I mean that doesn't do anything. The spankings, I don't think that gets the point across. I think it depends on what age the child is. Like Gianna. I keep saying names. You can edit that. My granddaughter, being 2.5, we got a little timeout chair, because there's times she'll get frustrated and she'll throw a toy, or she'll just get frustrated. So, at that age, you're going by the age rule, minute rule. So she's 2, she sits in her timeout chair for 2 minutes, but it's explained to her. And that timeout chair, we've only had to use two or three times, because she knows, and she knows now when she has to go to it. She knows she's going to sit there. It's not like trying to get up and walk away or whatever. So, yeah, she was... funny how kids react when they come out of it and they say sorry and they give you a hug. It was another thing when we were on a walk with her and she saw something and wanted to run after it, but she was going into the street. So Stacy screamed to try to get her to stop. And granted, she wasn't like way ahead of us, but you never know when a car is coming.
Right.
And so she just dropped and started crying because
She got yelled at.
Grandma yelled. So then, I pulled her aside, had a discussion with her, and it was one of those that we sat and talked about it for 2 minutes. We didn't have a timeout share because we were on a walk. But, afterwards, then she took both of our hands and she was in the middle of us and walked down the sidewalk and she was happy. So I think, again, going back to the structure and discipline, I think she understood. It wasn't overdone. There was no, spanking. There was no whatever. So, yeah, I don't believe... Now, some kids are completely out of control, but I've never been one to believe in spanking. But I believe that, nowadays, obviously, social media, or you could take phones away or tablets or, that kind of thing. Or, go up to your room for X amount of time and think about it and then we'll talk. That kind of thing. So, but I was fortunate.
I was reading a study a while back for parents that use chores as punishments. And according to that study, I'd have to actually find it, to really give the details from it, but the gist of it was, parents that used chores as punishments, those kids grew up to hate doing housework and not enjoy, having a job. Because they're like, this is a punishment.
Yeah, go ahead.
In psychology, there studies have been shown to, it's called operant conditioning, and they tested which forms of punishment is best, and they categorized the four different ones. It's positive negative reinforcement and positive negative punishment. Just long story short is the best they found was positive reinforcement. So you did something good, you reward them. So yeah, that goes in line with, oh yeah, I got punished doing this chore, so of course I don't like chores, right? So
It's where my disdain for mowing the lawn comes from, because that was always my punishment. If I got in trouble, go mow the lawn. Even if it didn't need it, she'd make me go mow the lawn.
And Cass, she never had chores per se. Her chores was her schoolwork. Our biggest push for her, that's why we never, wanted her to have a job when she was in high school, because we wanted her to, excel at that, and it paid off with the scholarships that she got, and it was a lot better than earning minimum wage, flipping burgers or whatever. Now, I have nothing against people that do that. We had just decided for her,
School's more important.
School's more important than, being on the National Honor Society and having, her grades. That was up to her. It wasn't like we were disciplinarians as far as schoolwork. You get to your room and you do this, and how dare you bring home a B? It's like, No, not. We weren't cuckoo.
That was a huge contradiction for me growing up because my mom would get upset when we got bad grades, but never once was she like, "Did you do your homework? How's school going? Do you have anything you need to get done that needs to be turned in this week, tomorrow, whatever?" It was always just do better.
Yeah. No, Cass was always really good about that. And as far as chores go, there was times where, as she got older, like more middle school, high school, and she wanted to learn how to do laundry or how do we do this. You know, I see you do this all the time, but I don't know how to do it. So we went through a stage where she followed me around and watched how I cleaned the house and did things. And
so it's your fault that I can't clean the bathrooms to a standard.
Yes, so she's got a standard, and she will hold you to it. Yeah, so it was never a punishment. She wanted to learn how to cook. She wanted to learn, all the different things, and it was fun actually doing that with her, as a parent.
So I feel like you've kind of already answered this throughout all the things you've said tonight, but do you think being a father got easier as you got older?
Yes, definitely.
Just because you learned all the little tips and tricks and were able to implement them more efficiently and...
Well, when kids are vicious.
Kids are vicious.
Kids are vicious. I'm talking about outside influences, kids that are, peers of your, I won't say friends, but, as police officers, we were more cautious with our children on what we allowed them to do, as far as we allowed them to go, and where they had to check in and, all right, when you get to so-and-so's house,
call us,
text, do what, you need to do, and let us know you're there.
That's just being safe, though.
Right, it's being safe. But there were a lot of kids that didn't understand when they were little that, I'm sorry, we're not going to let her ride up to the ice cream store, which is 2.5 miles away, on her bike. It's just, there's way too many things that can happen. But certain kids, were like, oh, so-and-so won't let, so they'll pick on somebody for that, or they'll make a big deal about it. Or that kid will end up finding another friend whose parent doesn't give a rat's ass and, isn't watching or doesn't care. And
that was my life.
Well,
I didn't have boundaries. I was go wherever you want, just be home before night.
And I would say, like, if you polled Cass, or if you pulled her aside and, asked her, what could you, if you had to change one thing or whatever, and maybe now that she's older and, she looks at things differently, she may say, no, that didn't bother her. But I think when she was growing up, I think it did to a point. But it was only for her own safety.
Fair enough. This will be a hard one for you to pick out.
Uh-oh.
What are the happiest moments you have with you and your family?
It's funny because Stacy and I just talked about this the other day.
Could be anything. When you and Stacy got married, when Cass was born, when she graduated high school, any of the family vacations you went on.
Yeah.
But if you had to pick, like, let's say your top either 4 or 5 moments.
Oh boy.
Or if that's too many, you can narrow it down further.
No, it's um, with Tony, I would say, one of the happiest moments I have with him was early on, because he was little.
I guess he was like 6 when you and
He
Stacy got married.
He was 4 when we started dating. He was 5, just turned 5 when we got married. But I had asked him to be my best man, to stand up there with me or whatever. And I mean, he was over the moon excited,
Even though I don't think a 5-year-old knew what that meant.
No, he knew that he had the tie, and he was going to stand up there with us, and he. I know that was a very special moment to him, and I mean, Stace and I never went on a real honeymoon. One of the lieutenants had a cabin in Michigan that he let us use for the weekend. So we drove up there with Tony, and he wanted to surprise us by making us, granted he's 5, so he wanted to surprise us by making us breakfast in bed, and so we're sound asleep, and we hear the smoke alarms going on. And we wake up to, he was microwaving bacon, and he put it on for 10 minutes, and it got a tad crispy and smoky.
Did you still try it?
Yeah. But this goes back to everything we did. We've always done things as a family, and I think Stacy and I have been on 2 vacations by ourselves, without,
which were within the past 5 years.
yeah, yeah, since our kids have been married. So, those stick out. Being able to go on because there's not too many dads that can go on field trips, and I was, for both of the kids, I was able to do that. I worked midnights, so I was able to go and do those day field trips with the kids, and I know how proud Tony was with that. I was also the Boy Scout den mother. I don't know what's a proper thing to say now. Den father, den person, den leader.
With the Boy Scouts, it usually was a dad, so saying den father would have been right. But yeah. Girl Scouts saying den mother in quotes for you would have been more appropriate.
Yeah. So yeah, whatever. But I mean, he enjoyed those years of doing that. So that was all right. I'm getting off topic. So
your happiest
the happiest moments. All right. So I've spewed out a bunch, and I'll name, like with Cassidy. There was different vacations that we had taken Um, and when my father was alive, we had taken a trip with, it was Cassidy, my mom, my dad, and myself. Unfortunately, Stace had to work, but you know, we had gone to Missouri and Southern Illinois, and then we went to the farm where, you know, the family, you know, has its farm. And watching Cassidy interact with not just my dad, but my older relatives, my great uncles and my great aunts, and you know, all being at the farm and sharing that time together, and her sitting on my dad's lap and listening to the old family stories from, you know, back in the 30s, and you know how the farm used to be and the things they used to have to do, and watching her interact with those people and just being in awe. And I think she can remember the stories to this day. And so I think that was a huge part of her. But I mean, with her, you know, one of the best nights of my life, we went to see the Phantom of the Opera at it was at the Cadillac Palace Theater in Chicago.
Her and I were just talking about that yesterday.
At the Phantom of the Opera.
Mm-hmm. She's saying she wants to go see it again.
And one of the best nights of my life. You know, she took one of her friends. We went for her 16th birthday, and it was remarkable. So, happiest moments in my life, those, you know, when I first met Stacy, we were friends for about 2.5 years before we looked at each other differently. And when that happened, you know, it never stopped. So I would say that one night when things changed, where we went from being good friends for 2.5 years to, I mean, we knew everything about each other, to all of a sudden we looked in each other's eyes and it was different.
The fireworks.
Yeah, it was, and it's hard to explain, hard to put your finger on it, but I look at that moment in time and how it changed my life, you know, going forward. So, you know, other than, you know, like her being born and whatnot, those things really jump out in my head. You know, there was another one where Tony went back up to Michigan, but it was just Tony, Gil, my friend Gil, and myself. It was a boys' trip, and we treated him like one of the boys. He was 6 at the time. And of course, you know, Gil has to teach him all the different pranks that you do on people. And, you know, like pouring cold water, you know, when somebody's in the shower, you know, so he taught him, and I mean, that was a really great experience for all of us, you know, where he got to see why I bonded with Gil so well, you know. So that was another one, but I could go on and on because I've had a lot of heartache in my life, you know, losing relatives and loved ones at young ages, losing partners and people on the job, but I've had a great life, and I've been blessed.
So not to be confused with your happiest moments.
Oh no.
What are some of your proudest moments of your family?
Proudest of my family?
So your accomplishments, Stacy's accomplishments, Tony's accomplishments, Cass's accomplishments. Or your parents, grandparents, siblings. Just moments that stick out to you where you were truly proud of the other people in your family.
Watching Stacy go through the different ranks in the police department.
All the way up to chief.
All the way up to chief. Knowing that when she got into a bind, when she was, whether it was a street sergeant or a detective call that she was called out on, or whatever rank she happened to be at the time, she knew that a lot of the guys that she worked with didn't have the smarts. So she would rely on me. So she would pick up the phone, she'd call me, okay, this is the situation, this is what we have. And I would be able to walk her through exactly what she needed to do. And that, in a way, it helped me feel like I was also part of watching her grow through the ranks. Because I felt like, not that I was a huge, integral part, but I was there for her when she needed it.
To give the guidance when she...
To give her the guidance and knowledge and whatnot. Watching Tony finally make the decision to, okay, I need to pull up my bootstraps and figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And he chose the Navy. And he's in his 19th year?
I'll say he's about to hit his 20.
Yeah. So he's smack dab in the middle of his 19th. Yeah, he's going to hit 20 in April. March. So, I think he's got another 4 in him. I think he'll re-up when he gets back from the Middle East.
Think so?
Yeah.
Well, I thought he said this was going to be his final contract.
Yeah, I think different things in life can sway you one way or the other, and times being what they are, you know how it is. Even if you do get out, you get called back. So I think it might be worth it, depending on what happens in the world, for him just to stay in.
Plus, I don't remember the exact percentages, but I know with military retirement, like, you do your 20, you get so many percent, and then every, 2 more years after that, it keeps jumping up, and I think it maxes out at 30?
Yeah, and see, it's very similar in police. I know we're getting off topic. But that's why, that break-even point of retirement is somewhere between that 26 and 27 year time frame. So, where were we on?
Proud moments.
Proud.
Not to be confused with happy, but proud. You've talked about Stace, you've talked about Tony.
And with Cass, her ambition to be a special ed teacher. Obviously, it came a lot in part due to her involvement in Special Olympics. With Special Olympics and the police departments do a lot of stuff together. So she got involved at the age of 7 and volunteered along with us, doing different events and stuff throughout the years. But I think that's kind of geared her in the direction of being a sped teacher. And I know this is going to sound really strange, but as much as she wanted it, she had done it for 3 years, and in that third year, or maybe it was fourth, I don't know. You'll know better than me.
3.
In that third year, I think the reality really hit her in the head that being a teacher doesn't command the same respect as it used to years ago. And the teachers are handcuffed, not unlike the police officers are in today's day and age, where you're not able to do or handle a situation which puts not only you but the person in more harm by tying your hands on what you're able to do. I know that it was very, very a hard decision for her to walk away from that job because it's something she had aspired to do.
And she put so much time and energy and effort into obtaining that goal.
And this is where I say it's going to sound weird, but I'm very proud of her to have been able to come to that realization herself, not by pressure from anybody, and being able to walk away. And actually walking away from that job has led her to this other job that she's doing so well at. And not that she didn't do well at the other one, but I think mentally it was really tearing her apart.
Oh, it was destroying her.
It was. And because that's all you guys would do, because both of you were doing the same thing, and you'd come home and you'd talk and you'd just vent, and it would just be, nobody needs that kind of stress in their life. So as far as, yes, watching her graduate, walking her down the aisle, her, giving me that napkin and, being able to, give you a hug and hand her off to you. All of those are very proud. But if I look at the proudest moment that I have is her being able to stand on her own 2 feet and make that tough decision herself. I hope I explained
That's commendable.
No.
What about yourself?
What am I proud of? Or what
Are you proud of yourself?
Am I proud? I'm proud of probably trying to give the best direction I can as a father. To be there no matter what time they picked up the phone or what time they need to call. There was a time going back probably about 8 years ago, so Tony was probably in his 12th year, and he had called. He knows I'm a night owl. I'm up, so he had called somewhere around 2 a.m, and so obviously I grabbed the phone or whatever, and He had just finished his watch. They have all sorts of weird hours, as you know. But we had talked on the phone for about 2.5 hours. And I can remember after that conversation him saying, thanks for always being there. And especially now. I mean, at that point, he really needed somebody to talk to. And, it's like, I know it was 2.5 hours, but it seemed like 10 minutes, because we were just talking. And he wasn't necessarily venting about, I think the stress, the stress was really weighing hard on him. It was during another one of those times not unsimilar to what we're going through now, where, things are just getting rough, so I look at, all the times that, Cass has called, and, whether it's, whatever she needs. I pride myself on always being there. Just like I said for Stacy, when she would call from work. I if I had to say one thing I'm the most proud of is, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something. If I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. So I guess
I can attest to that. You've answered the phone every time I've called.
being a reliable person is, I guess, the thing I can hang my hat on, and I get that from my father.
This one should be an easy one for you to answer. How do you show your family love?
A warm, hot meal.
That's the truth.
That's what Strive would say. Along with several other people.
You're a good cook. What can we say?
Yeah. Everybody loves Steve. How do I show? By being there. No matter, when or, what it entails.
I mean, bringing up Strive, you've even done that for him. Remember when his grandfather passed away and he and I were working at the factory? Like, I couldn't leave to take him home.
Right.
But he knew if he called you, you were there to pick him up just like that.
Yep. Yeah, that was a tough one on him. I mean, I'm glad I was there for him. But he's again, we're talking about family. He's part of
the family.
He's part of that family. So, yeah,
being there. What are some of our family traditions?
Well, one's coming up here really quick.
You don't got to go into all of them if you just want to.
No,
say
yeah,
a few
we'll just touch on a couple. Some of our family traditions. Obviously, we were always going to Disney 2 or 3 times a year. The kids kind of grew up that way. But traditionally on Halloween night, we would make grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup, and of course they called it blood soup. So we would do that, and we would watch Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein, and which probably started the kids off on their love of horror movies. And even though that one's more of a comedy horror, but it was still...
It's a classic.
It was still there. Traditions. I have to put Comic-Cons in there. You know, it's become.
Been to a handful of those.
We've been to our handful. We've met some great people. You know, some great celebrities, and gotten to know them on a personal level. You know, some of which I can. When you talk about reliable, you know, I can text this one specific person, which I'm not going to mention a name, and within a few minutes, he will have responded right back to me. You know, where he's another one of those people that is a reliable person. So it's a good trait to have, and he's a great family man too.
Oh, he is. Even, I mean, I only got to have that one conversation with him, but he's a cool, down to earth guy,
and would do anything for his family.
Nice. This next one, I want to see if our viewpoints on this differ. So,
Spotted cow versus. Oh, no.
what is your opinion on last names and continuing the family lineage? So, like when you married Stacy, if she said she was not going to take your last name, would that have been a deal breaker? Would that have offended you? Like, would there have to have been a conversation about it? Like, how important is a last name to you?
Boy, that's a tricky one there.
If you want, I'll tell you my viewpoint first. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
So we had talked about it when Cass was the guest, but Cass and I had a conversation before we got married. To me, it was very important. It was very important that whoever I was going to marry was willing to take my last name. She had no qualms with it. She was like, okay, I'm a Blackwell now. Great.
Right.
So to me, it was very important just because there's not a whole lot of Blackwells left. I'm very proud of my last name, and I wanted it to be continued and carried on.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
I would. Let me lay out a situation here. When I was growing up, just like you, I was named after my father. So I was a junior. And I would say, I mean, most of the time I was Little Don. And, you know, all of my dad's relatives, you know, I was always Little Don, Little Don, Little Don. And I never truly grasped the importance of that until my father died. And when he died and I realized now I'm the only one with that name, it ripped my heart out. So I can understand where you're coming from with the importance of having that, you know, because, like I said, you're a junior, the same as myself. So, you know, you want that to carry on, and, you know, but to me, you know, if you know, Stacy would have said, I mean, I promise you she wouldn't. she wouldn't want to have kept her name. But, you know, if she were, you know, because some people are all about hyphenating and doing all those things, but again, I have to look at that person. Do they not want to let go? Because that's what they know. That's a part of them. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I disagree with people that hyphenate their names, because they don't want to lose what they, you know.
Right.
So
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with hyphenating. Like, Vin, you're planning on hyphenating, right?
Oh no, mine is we're gonna actually just we're gonna combine our names and make
Oh, so you're not even gonna hyphenate, you're just gonna smack them together.
Oh.
Yeah, because for me it was that, like, this is my dad's name. I don't even talk to my dad. He was a great dad, but he's not a good person. So I'm not really, I don't really care about continuing his lineage, if that makes sense. So, and then Mia is just all about me. She's just willing to follow me. And so I was like, you know what? Like, why don't we combine our names? And so I love it's. My friends call it Vinisms. I make these stupid jokes or stupid puns. So I was like, oh, her last name is Solis, and my last name is Lay. So I was like, let's just combine and make Soleil. And so, yeah. And she's like, I love it. That's awesome. And I was like, yeah. So I just create our own, like a start of a new lineage.
And I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, that's a fun story.
Yeah.
You know,
Like I said, I see nothing wrong with that.
No, I don't. I've never heard of that, and that's wow. That's a good one.
You're the first to say a Vinism is beautiful. Most people they have a disdain for my jokes. So.
I'll admit, I'm one of those people. Every once in a while, he'll crack one. I'm like, Vin, just stop. Just stop.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it. Oh, man.
So what else is on your list of ideas there?
Well, we got one more question for you, and then the rest of them are questions for you in regards to me.
Oh, okay. So we're diving deep into the deep end of the pool.
So before we get to that, we have in here, what is one thing that you could tell new fathers now? Like if you had to give one word of advice to a new father, what would you say to them?
Boy. In regards to how to raise children, or in regards to
anything.
When to start thinking about that, or
in regards family in general. So like you have somebody you know, they are a brand new first time father, and they're like, I want Don's words of wisdom. Ooh. What would you say to them?
My words. I used to think, go ahead and wait to start a family till you're ready. The bottom line is, you're never ready. You're never going to be ready for that. The only thing is, your body is going to get older. So, like us dealing with the grandchild now, I realize why people have kids when they're younger.
So you can keep up with them.
Yes. So if I was going to give some advice, I would say have them not too early, because you want to make sure you really, really know that person you're with. And you'll know deep down. And then the second part is, when you do have those children, to be active in their lives as much as humanly possible. I know work gets in the way, but don't let your hobbies get in the way of spending time with your children.
So keep working, to keep a roof over their head,
right,
food on
because
the table.
That's a necessity.
But if you don't have to work and an event or something comes up, make the time to go, and don't stay home because you want to relax.
And I'm not saying, some of these families have phone baskets. So as soon as they come in the door, they got to put their phone in the basket. And you should be able to have self-discipline, and if your children are, if you're gathered as a family and you're playing a game, or you're watching a movie together, or you're having dinner, you should have enough respect for your children or your family to leave the phone somewhere else to do that. So I would, because you're sending those kids a message that, well, maybe that phone's a little bit more important than we are. So again, I would, caution people on, messages that you send to your children, even if you don't think you are. They're picking up on everything.
Actions speak.
Yes, they do. And teach your kids something. Whether it's, like with Cass, how to, I was going to say shoot. how to
cook, how to clean.
Yeah, how to do, family stuff, but I taught both my children how to shoot, gun safety and whatnot. So, but be there.
All right. Let's move on to the fun stuff. So do you consider me like blood at this point?
I consider you, again, we take blood, throw it out, because you're much closer and a much integral part of the family than people that I'm blood related to. So, I don't know if that answers your question. So the blood part of it, I look at you deeper than
blood relation.
So in a more positive way than, if that makes sense.
To me, you're a second dad.
Yeah.
You're right up there with Jeff Sr. What was your opinion of me when you first met me?
To be honest,
you could be brutally honest.
And I will. I believed just by your cross, your tattoos, that you were a deeply religious person. So that made me feel safe and comfortable as far as Cassidy goes. So that,
false sense of security.
Yeah, it's one of those, and I'm just, you asked when I first met you,
yeah.
and so that was, something that I perceived, and I know that deep down underneath it all, that you are a believer, and you are, you've had a lot of crap fall on you in life, and sometimes that shovel seems very heavy, but, he hasn't forgotten you, and, nor will we. So, we're all a family. So,
my first thought of you,
yeah,
this man could break me in half without breaking a sweat. Because I know you can't tell from the cameras, I'm 5'8", he's 6 foot, and like twice my size. So my first thought was, if I step out of line with his daughter, he's going to hurt me, and it's going to hurt bad.
That's all that WrestleMania you grew up watching,
Ooh, what are a couple of times that we disagreed with or disliked each other?
I would say, was it last Saturday when we were playing Zombicide, and you wanted to go into that room with the walkers, and rather than going through the correct, no, I'm kidding, we won't.
Hey, I died a hero in that game, okay?
We accomplished the mission, but you
I
died.
just didn't leave to see it.
You died. Oh, no. Somebody kicking on there?
No.
Oh.
Don't worry about
Uh,
that. That's kind of hard to really pinpoint. Like, because we really haven't had that many disagreements.
no. I would say if I had to put one thing down, and we tried to explain our reasonings to you, when you and Cass were first starting to get to know each other, and you wanted her to move in with you, and you wanted her name on the lease with you, like that was an important thing to you. And at the time, because of reasons, again, we're not going to bring up, but your credit score wasn't very good.
No, it was terrible.
It was terrible. So, having been through life experience that Stace and I have been through, we knew that it was going to benefit you greatly, even though we would all be supporting financially towards this. If you had, the electricity on your own, the gas, the water, all the utilities, and the rent, that it was going to help you boost your credit score. And I don't think at the time you could truly understand.
Oh no, I was young and dumb, and I know my exact thought process was, well, if something goes sideways, I'm stuck with all of this.
Right. But because you couldn't see where we were coming from. And by doing it that way, did your credit score go up?
Oh yeah, my credit score is beautiful now.
Okay. So I would say if we had to, pinpoint one thing, I think we had a discussion. We sat down and explained our reasons why or whatever, and maybe at the time you didn't understand. And I think now, looking back, you can say, wow,
It was the right call.
Yeah. So
I was young and dumb. We've all been there.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that it was, it wasn't a fight or a disagreement per se. It was
something that warranted a conversation.
Yeah.
How long did it take us to feel comfortable with each other?
After that first game of Monopoly, no.
I'd say it was pretty quick.
It was quick. Yeah, because once you're playing certain card games where you have to read, I'm not going to mention names, and you have to read a certain thing and pick the best answer. Very adultish. We could all understand each other's humor, and that we were we were kind of similar in that regard with the humor.
Yeah, we have a lot of things in common that we enjoy, like shooting.
Yeah.
Food.
Shooting. Food. Yeah.
Ooh. Do we like each other's families? That's a loaded question, Vin.
Yeah. Yeah. The divided part. Boy. I would say it's split down. I don't know if there's a middle or a crook in there somewhere.
There are people from
Yeah.
your family that I get along with and I enjoy, and there are some that I do not.
Right.
And that
And-
goes both ways.
Right. And, Jeff and Leslie and, even your half brother and sister.
Jeff and Leslie's kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aubrey and I only know him by his nickname,
Moose.
Moose. Yeah, so looking at those are and we can't, forget your grandmother
You
in
can't
there.
forget Mimi.
She's a hoot. I would say your dad's relatives that I've met, because I've only really experienced time with them. Get along with that side. Don't really know the other side, and as far as what I know,
We'll keep it
Yeah.
that way.
I'll keep my distance.
Y'all do y'all when y'all dislike a family member, is that through like values and morals, or was there a disagreement, or was there an action? What made why do y'all dislike certain family members?
It's through actions. So,
Okay.
like, there are certain family members that have wronged him, or wronged his kids, or wronged his wife that I'm like, no. And with my family, they've all wronged me and they've wronged Cass, so.
And
Yeah.
that's what I would say. This is exactly the same thing that he did. Is once they hurt them, either with words or
Actions.
lack of acknowledgement, or sometimes worse. It's hard watching the people that you care about get hurt by other people.
Sure.
Name one of your favorite memories with me.
Okay, one of the favorite memories with you. Gonna be one of a couple. But I would say early on, when we were still in Avon at the lake house. And granted, we didn't have a lot of family down there. So being able to have you come over and work on the pier where we had to readjust it after the winter and get everything leveled and set and do all that stuff, and you were able to get into the water, and we had to get down in there and get dirty, and working like that with you helped remind me of my dad and my grandfather working on the farm, setting fence posts, doing the farm chores, or doing the different stuff. So I would say that's probably one of the ones that really sticks out, because that relationship brought back a memory.
I will say I'm glad we never have to do that again.
Yeah.
That pier was a pain in the ass.
Yeah. No, unless we win the lotto, we're not going to have another lake house.
For me, I would say it was that very first conversation we had where it was just me and you sitting at the kitchen table in Avon. Where I was telling you my life story and background, you were telling me yours. We sat there for 3 hours?
Yep. About 3 hours. Yeah.
Just talking different stories about our past. That one always sticks out for me. Learned a lot about you.
Yeah. That and the times we used to go to the range and, trying to, not that I had to teach you how to shoot, but there's things that you wanted correcting, like, why is it pulling to this side, so little different corrections and, those.
Speaking of that, Strive wants to do that again because he needs some more practice.
Yeah, we all need it. With what's coming up, who knows?
Truth. What is your favorite thing about me?
The
Savage.
the neatly trimmed beard. He knows. We've had this conversation because sometimes he'll go caveman, and he'll have this wild beard, and then
I'm telling you, one of these times I'm gonna get you to grow yours out.
So what was the question? What is my favorite thing about you?
Favorite thing about me?
Your ability to be honest about virtually anything, especially when it comes to, a lot of people have a hard time talking about family and like, boy, this is again, who's watching this? But that I have a hard time talking to you about certain members of my family. Just because it can be embarrassing, or it can be, it's just so difficult. But when you have a problem, you'll talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll share it. And I think it helps you to be able to share, and I'm glad we're there to be able to listen and maybe give you some advice. But yeah, that's what I would say with that one.
For me, it's your advice. Because there's never been a problem I've brought to your attention where you haven't been able to be like, you know what, I've seen something like this before, or I know how to do this, or I know how to do that.
I know how to do a few things. Yeah. I get that from my dad. As far as being a jack of all trades. I mean, he taught me, how to work on cars. He taught me how to, take care of a yard. He taught me how to, like I said, be interested in cooking. He taught me to be able to respect my elders or really appreciate them. I mean, I loved knowing my older relatives. Like Cass, got to know them through the stories. And just like hearing the stories of my, my great uncles. One died on the beach of Normandy. And, Cass and I, when we would go down to the cemetery or whatever, and, we would always put a flag, and, it's weird when you see that date on a tombstone, and you see June 6th, 1945, and it's just like, really? It sits in your head. All right. Feed me. Where are we? What were we answering here?
weren't answering anything. I was telling you that my favorite thing about you is the fact you always have advice to give. No matter the
advice.
problem.
And like I said, I do get a lot of that from my father. He his family was, he was blessed with great grandparents and great aunts and uncles. His mother and father were horrible. I mean, they abandoned him when he was little, and he was the oldest of 4 boys. And he had to take care of his younger ones. And I think that really helped prepare him for fatherhood.
He was kind of forced to grow up a little early.
Yeah, I mean, he was eventually, he was raised by my great grandmother, who is a superb person. Oh. And I think he learned, because she told they worked together as a family, like doing the chores or whatever, but it was up to him to show them the ropes, show them how to do everything, which is probably why, he did that with me,
Prepared you for life.
Yeah, he definitely did. If there's something plumbing, electrical, whatever I need, he knew how to do it all.
Electrical's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
I got you. Plumbing, got you. Electrical, nope, I'm not getting zapped. Anything you want to add? That was all we had written down. Or you, Vin?
What? I'm just chilling. Dude, any more to add? I added all those freaking questions. Holy. Yeah.
But I didn't know if you had thought of anything, if anything popped into your head.
Then y'all enjoy father and son-in-law time.
Yeah. I mean, when that whole getting back to the beginning of, blood is thicker than water, throw that out the window. Because I've had more friends have my back than family members. But those family members, like my father or my grandfather or my grandmother, that taught me so many different things, that's what family is. And the other ones, I just don't know. It's hard to explain unless you've been in that situation. When you're in a household with multiple siblings and you're all so different, but you're raised by the same people, it's hard to understand. Other than there's got to be a personality gene or something that floats around in you that you pick up something from, this person. Or maybe it's because, like, my brother and I were vastly different. I don't think we had one thing in common with each other.
Did you run in different crowds, though? Because that's what I attribute me and my sisters being so different to, is the fact that we didn't surround ourselves with the same people. Like, outside of the family home, we had our different friend groups, and that's kind of what shaped us into being our own individuals.
Yes. My brother was into the music and theatrics and the arts and painting and sculptures and doing all that type of stuff. I mean, he had so much talent for
The arts.
The arts, and I'll say all the arts. I mean, he could draw and paint, and he got a scholarship to DePaul University, in two different art categories. Vocally and painting. He had more talent than I've got in my little finger. And I was the jock. Everything I lived for was sports. And
You
girls.
and your foosball.
No, we were complete opposites. So we ran in different circles. But I was much closer with my father, and he was much closer with my mother. Does that have anything to do with it? I don't know.
It could not.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. And unfortunately, his life led him down a path that, led to addiction and, eventually his passing at an early age. And, it's sad. And I don't know I wish I could ask him why that happened. We both grew up in the same household. Why did things happen differently? But we'll never know.
Not in this lifetime.
No, not in this lifetime.
I think we're good to wrap it up, though, Vin.
Sure. So, this week was the family and father-son-in-law special part 2 episode. Next week we will be talking about professional relationships in the workplace, how men handle workplace relationships. All right, Jeff, with the motto.
All right. Don't forget that we do have our Discord server, the Brothers Bonfire. If you're wanting a community and a band of brothers that are going through similar experiences as you, then come and join our journey and take a seat at the bonfire. All are welcome.
Along with uploading every Wednesdays, we will also stream the podcast when we can on Sundays. Come hang with us after the podcast. This stream is a safe space for anyone to just chill, hang, talk about anything. Take care, guys, and thank you, Don, again for
All right.
speaking.
You take care too.
Thank you.
All right.